The patrol ship had been drifting through the outer rim for 3 weeks when they found it. A human vessel, small and damaged, tumbling slowly through the dark. The hull showed signs of weapons fire and one engine was completely gone. Most ships would have passed it by, marked it as debris and moved on. But the weren't most species. Commander studied the readings on his display. Life signs. His sensor officer checked twice before answering. One, faint but stable, in the cargo bay. The bridge went silent. Every knew what this meant. Humans were legendary across the galaxy. They'd stopped 3 invasion attempts, turned back the hive swarms, and established themselves as a major power in less than 2 centuries. But no one had ever captured one alive. Bodies, yes. Wreckage, certainly. But never a living human to study. "Board it," I ordered, carefully. The boarding team went in prepared for anything. They wore full combat armor and carried weapons designed to stop creatures twice their size. They'd heard the stories. Humans who fought off entire squads. Humans who survived in vacuum. Humans who refused to die no matter what you did to them. What they found was a man in a damaged flight suit, unconscious but breathing. He looked surprisingly ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. No claws, no natural armor, no obvious weapons. The team leader, a veteran named, almost felt disappointed. They carried him back to their ship and locked him in the medical bay behind 3 sets of reinforced doors. The patrol ship immediately changed course for Prime. This was too important for a simple outpost. Command would want to see this. The human woke up 2 days later. The medical staff had been monitoring him constantly, amazed at what they found. His bone density was incredible. His immune system attacked everything foreign with vicious efficiency. His body was already healing the minor injuries he'd sustained. But he was still just flesh and blood. Nothing supernatural. Nothing that explained humanity's reputation. When his eyes opened, the first thing he did was look around calmly, taking in his surroundings. The observation room full of scientists, the locked doors, the monitoring equipment. Then he sat up slowly, wincing slightly, and spoke in perfect. "I don't suppose anyone has coffee." The scientist stared, or the lead researcher stepped closer to the glass. "You speak our language." "Enough to get by," the human said. "Took a linguistics course a few years back. Figured it might be useful if I ever ran into your people." He stretched carefully, testing his limits. "I'm, by the way, freight hauler out of the Titan station, and I'm guessing I'm not there anymore." "You are on Prime," Or said. "You are being held for study." Nodded like this made perfect sense. "Right, because you've never caught a human before." He looked directly at Or. "I'm going to be honest with you. This is a really bad idea." "Is that a threat?" "It's advice," said. "But you're not going to listen, so let's skip ahead. What do you want to know?" For the next week they ran tests. Physical endurance trials that passed easily. Cognitive puzzles he solved with disturbing speed. Psychological assessments that revealed nothing unusual except a tendency toward optimism and stubbornness. They drew blood, scanned his brain, and monitored his sleep. Every piece of data made them more confused. "He's not special," one scientist complained during a briefing. "He's just a civilian, a cargo hauler. Where's the warrior? Where's the superhuman?" Or studied the data carefully. "Perhaps that's the point. If their civilians are this capable, what are their soldiers like?" They moved to a permanent containment cell designed for dangerous specimens. Reinforced walls, constant surveillance, guards at every checkpoint. He accepted this without complaint, asking only for books and something to do. They gave him data pads with basic information about culture, thinking it harmless. Read everything. He asked questions, always polite, always curious. When a guard brought his food, he learned her name. She was young for a guard, just finished training. He asked about her family, her interests. She found herself answering, even though she shouldn't. "You have siblings?" asked one day. "2 brothers," I said, "both in the fleet." "That must be hard. worrying about them. She blinked. No one had ever said that to her before. It is our duty. Sure, agreed, but it's still hard. My sister's a colony engineer on the frontier. Every time there's news from that sector, I hold my breath until I hear she's okay. He smiled. Family's family, you know. I found herself smiling back. Then she caught herself and left quickly. But the next day, she brought him the spiced grain cakes her mother made, thanked her genuinely, and asked for the recipe. It was small things like that. A technician struggling with a monitoring device got helpful suggestions from that actually worked. A scientist who mentioned in passing that he studied Earth flora received detailed descriptions of different ecosystems. Never pushed, never demanded. He just talked to people like they were people. Or watched all of this on the security feeds. He watched exercise in his cell, moving through what looked like random stretches but always near the door, the walls, the observation glass. He watched stare at nothing, but the reflections showed him studying the corridor beyond. He watched make friends with people who should have seen him only as a specimen. After 3 weeks, or pulled up the facility schematics and overlaid them with from every position in his cell. His blood went cold. The human could see 17% of the facility lay out through reflections and indirect observation. He knew when shifts changed because people's voices sounded different when they were tired. He'd learned the names of 43 staff members and something personal about each one. Or called for increased security. Warlord, the military commander overseeing the facility, came personally to assess the situation. "You're concerned about one unarmed prisoner," growled. "I'm concerned we don't understand what we're dealing with," Or said. "Look at this." He pulled up footage of his daily routine, speeding through hours of seemingly idle behavior. He's testing the door seals every morning during his stretches. He's memorized guard rotations. He's befriended half the staff. So he's in a reinforced cell with armed guards. What can he possibly do? Or wished he had an answer. All he had was a growing sense of dread. "I don't know, that's what worries me." Dismissed his concerns. "Run your tests," or, "That's what he's here for. The council wants to know what makes humans so formidable. We need answers before we face them in the contested zones." That night, Or couldn't sleep. He went to the observation room and watched through the glass. The human was awake, sitting calmly in the dark, and he was looking directly at the hidden camera. Then smiled and gave a small wave. Or felt his skin go cold. The human knew. He'd known about the hidden camera all along. How long had he been performing for them? How much of what they'd learned was real, and how much was exactly what wanted them to see? The researcher made a decision. Tomorrow he'd recommend termination. Whatever secrets humanity held, they couldn't afford to let this one stay any longer. The risk was too great. But when morning came, everything changed. The facility's alarms went silent simultaneously. Not broken, just turned off. Security doors locked in random patterns, trapping some guards and freeing others. The communication system started playing music, human music, something with a strong beat and lyrics about not backing down. And in his cell stood up, walked to the door and watched it slide open on its own. Or ran to the observation room. "What's happening? Who's doing this?" The technicians frantically worked their controls. "Nothing's responding. The system's accepting our commands, but then doing something else. It's like someone rewrote the core protocols." "That's impossible," snapped. "Our systems are isolated. There's no outside access." His voice came over the facility's speakers, calm and friendly. "Actually, it's not that hard when you've been giving me data pads connected to your network for 3 weeks. Every time I asked a question about culture, you handed me access. Every time a technician came to fix something in my cell, I watched and learned. You thought you were studying me." There was a pause. "I was studying you right back." Grabbed a comm unit. "All units converge on the containment cell. Use lethal force if necessary." "I wouldn't do that," said over the speakers. "Check your long-range sensors. You've got company." On the main display, 3 ships appeared at the edge of space. Human ships, not warships, but they were definitely armed, and they were broadcasting a message on all frequencies. This is Director Sarah of the Human Diplomatic Corps. We're here to retrieve. We'd prefer to do this peacefully. Or looked at, they found us. Of course they found you, said, sounding almost amused. Did you really think we wouldn't notice one of our ships going missing? That we wouldn't track it? I've got a beacon in my suit that you never found because you were looking for the wrong kind of technology. Humans don't do things the way you expect. That's kind of our whole thing. Through the security feed, they watched walk calmly through the corridor. Guards tried to stop him, but doors sealed before they could reach him. Weapons mysteriously powered down. The facility itself seemed to be helping him escape. 3 weeks, Or said quietly. In 3 weeks he learned our systems, befriended our people, and prepared for this. Appeared on another camera closer to the landing bay. He looked directly at the lens. For what it's worth, Or, you seem like a decent person. You asked good questions. You treated me fairly. I respect that. But you should have let me go when you had the chance. Made his choice. Deploy the fleet. Show these humans what happens when they threaten Prime. On the director's expression didn't change. Unfortunate, she said simply. We tried. And with that, everything Or feared about humanity became terrifyingly real. The human ships didn't attack. They didn't need to. They simply broadcast a data packet across networks. Within seconds, every screen in the facility showed the same thing. Detailed maps of every military installation, troop movement, and strategic asset in 3 sectors. Information that should have been impossible for humans to gather. Except they'd been gathering it for months. While they had been focused on capturing one human, hundreds of others had been quietly mapping, observing, and preparing. The 3 ships in orbit weren't a rescue party. They were a demonstration. This is what we know, Director said. This is what we could destroy if we chose to. We don't choose to, because unlike some species, we believe in proportionate response. You took one of ours. We're taking him back. That can be the end of it, or it can be the beginning of something much worse. Your choice. In the corridor reached the landing bay. I stood there, weapon drawn but trembling. He smiled at her gently. It's okay, he said. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I never was. That's not who we are. You lied to us, she said. You pretended to be our friend. No, said, and he meant it. I like you, You're a good person stuck in a bad situation. I hope your brothers stay safe. I hope you get to see them soon. I mean that. He walked past her and she didn't fire. She couldn't, because he was right. He'd never been cruel, never been violent. He'd just been prepared. At the landing bay, a human shuttle waited, boarded it without looking back. As it lifted off, he sent one final message to the facility. Next time you meet a human, try talking first. You'd be surprised what you can learn. The shuttle docked with the diplomatic vessel. The 3 ships turned and accelerated away, leaving Prime intact and unharmed. They'd made their point. Humanity could have destroyed them. They chose mercy instead. In the observation room, Or and stood in silence. Finally, the researcher spoke. They didn't come to rescue him. They came to teach us a lesson. What lesson? Demanded. Or pulled up the file they'd been compiling on humanity. All the data, all the observations, all the questions they'd tried to answer. He added one final note to the report. Humanity is dangerous not because of what they can do, but because of when they choose to do it. They didn't attack us when we captured their civilian. They didn't destroy us when they clearly could have. They gave us a chance to do the right thing, and only when we refused did they show their true capabilities. He looked at. They're predators who prefer peace, but push them too far, and they'll remind you why prey species don't survive on death worlds. Read the report 3 times. Then he sent it to the council with a single recommendation. Avoid conflict with humanity at all costs. They are more dangerous than we imagined and more merciful than we deserve. We should not test either quality again. Across the galaxy, the Dominion quietly its claims from the contested zones. They didn't announce it. They just stopped pushing. Because they'd learned what every species eventually learned about humans. You could capture one, study one, even kill one, but the rest would come, and they'd bring everything they had, every skill they'd learned surviving on their nightmare world, every trick they'd developed fighting each other for, every ounce of stubbornness that made them refuse to quit no matter the odds. They had caught a human alive, and in doing so, they discovered why no one else had ever tried. Meanwhile, sat in the diplomatic vessel's lounge, finally drinking his coffee. Director sat across from him. "You were supposed to wait for extraction," she said. "I got impatient," admitted. "Besides, the facility security was laughably easy once I understood their systems. Did you know they use a centralized AI for everything? One vulnerability, and the whole thing opens up. You could have been killed." "But I wasn't," he smiled. "Because we're human, we plan for everything and then we improvise when the plan falls apart. It's what we do." Shook her head, but she was smiling too. "When we get back, you're teaching that class on infiltration techniques you've been avoiding." "Deal," said, "right after I file the worst trip report in the history of freight hauling." Behind them, space grew smaller and throughout the facility on Prime, people began to understand what they'd missed. The human hadn't been captured. He'd been inserted. Not intentionally, perhaps, but once he was there, he'd done what humans do best. He'd adapted, he'd learned, he'd prepared, and when the moment came, he'd shown them exactly what humanity was capable of. It wasn't strength, it wasn't technology, it was something far more dangerous. It was the absolute refusal to give up, combined with the intelligence to find a way forward no matter what stood in the path. That was humanity, and the galaxy would do well to remember it.